Justin, we can keep. Okay. Take it away.
Jody, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
and you can see my slides.
Yes, we can.
Okay, we're in good shape. All right. Thanks so much, Jody, for the introduction. Sharon and I are excited to be here today to share with you our knowledge about career management and obviously, specifically, the job search process that most of you are in today. As human beings, we're wired to connect. And I'm sure each of you has experienced the power of human connection at different points in your life. Contacts Count is a company dedicated to helping you and others unleash the power of human connection, both in your professional and personal life. And given that you're all in career transition at this point, I know that you're well aware of how critical networking, conversations, and making connections with other people are critical to your job search process. So as Jody indicated, I'm going to talk a little bit about networking and give you an overview of the Contacts Count approach to networking and talk a little bit about our 8 competencies. And then Shira is going to provide you a lot of great information about how do you reach out? How do you actually make the connection and set yourself up for a successful conversation? And then I'll finish the conversation I'll finish the presentation about talking about that conversation and what are some of the things that you can do to make that, a meaningful conversation with whoever you're talking to. So, and as they said, put your questions in the chat, and at the end of the presentation, we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can. So let's dive in. Here is a question I know all of you want the answer to. So you can put your answer to this question in the chat, and Jody, if you could just read off some of the responses as we go here.
Sure, she'll be happy to do that.
Yeah.
We have one, relationships, God, networking, positive attitude in relationships, consistency, networking, and that's what we have thus far.
Okay, we have a very sharp group here today, because multiple peer review studies have proven that the #1 predictor of career success is an open network, a network that's broad and diverse. And Michael Simmons did an in-depth analysis of all of this research from the researchers and the data scientists, and he wrote an article for Forbes a few years ago. And basically, his conclusion was that this one variable, having a broad, open, diverse network, accounts for at least 50% of your career success in terms of total compensation, number of promotions, and industry recognition. And as a job seeker, the other huge benefit of an open, broad, diverse network is you have greater access to the hidden job market. And if you don't know what that is, you really ought to want to know what that is, because a lot of the jobs never make their way to the internet. They are not posted anywhere. And that a number of people, and some of you in the audience may have found a job that someone told you about that you had no idea existed, and earlier in your career, you landed a job just because of that. So, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about networking and the Contacts Count approach, and give you an overview of our 8 competencies, which you see here on this slide. So adopting a positive network or identity is where it really needs to start. We all have a network or identity. Your network or identity might be, I don't like networking, I struggle with networking. That's your network or identity. At Contacts Count, we like to move people to the other end of the spectrum, and we want people to think about networking as teaching and giving. Every conversation that you have every day with anyone has the potential to be a conversation where you can teach someone something about who you are, and you can learn something about who they are. And when you think about the logic, it's very simple. The more I can teach you about who I am and what I'm all about, and my challenges and my goals, the greater likelihood you can help me in some way. And at the same time, I need to learn those same things about you so that I can give back to you in some way. So that mindset is fundamental to all of the skills and behaviors that are in the other 7 competencies. Communicate your expertise is the teaching competency. How do you teach people? How do you communicate your expertise in a way that's not bragging, it's not boasting, it's done at the appropriate time, in the appropriate context? And again, where are those opportunities and how do you do that? Engaging others is the reverse, learning about other people, asking them good, open-ended questions, thought-provoking questions, to learn as much as you can so you can give back to them. Taking a strategic approach is nothing more than stepping back and thinking about the time, the energy, the objectives you're trying to accomplish when you're networking, and making sure you're getting a good return on your investment for that time, money, time, energy, and sometimes the money you spend in networking. Developing trust-based relationships. We're going to take a little bit deeper dive in just a few minutes, but this is about every single conversation that you have every day with anyone, anywhere, and what type of conversation is that? And what's the strength of the relationship? And how do you build trust over time through the conversations you have with people? Networking gracefully is simply the rules, the etiquette, the norms of networking that have evolved over time. For instance, one of the rituals is the name exchange. Hi, I'm Vern. Jody says, hi, I'm Jody. And then 2 minutes later, we can't remember each other's name. And then we beat ourselves up for not being able to remember the other person's name. There's a reason for that. And you can actually learn skills and behaviors that can help you remember names. So it's all of those types of things in terms of when you're actually networking, whether that's one-on-one, whether it's virtual, whether it's at a networking event, all of those different rituals and ways to communicate come into play. Envisioning your ideal network is recognizing you have 4 networks, which in the job search, first of all, you want to know what are those 4 networks, who are in those networks, and am I reaching out to people in all 4 different areas of my life where I have connections and people that know me. And then finally, the last competency, achieve more, give more, is really based on, you've mastered the first 7, and the result, the outcome is simply you're achieving more, both as an individual, contributing to your team, contributing to your organization. And it's also about your personal brand, because every time we're communicating with anyone, anywhere, we're basically, they're evaluating us and judging us and all of those things that we do as human beings. We do the same thing when we're talking to somebody else. So it's achieving, a level of a reputation and a level of someone who is a giver, someone who's willing to give and knows that, and that's your reputation. So that's a quick overview of the 8 competencies. And this is the official definition that we put together for our book, Strategic Connections, the New Face of Networking in a Collaborative World. And as you can see there, the words that are highlighted: deliberate process, exchanging information, resources, support, access in such a way to create a mutually beneficial relationship. That's the goal of networking. I know you all know that it doesn't happen in a single conversation. Building a mutually beneficial, a trust-based, mutually beneficial relationship takes time, and it takes a number of conversations to have that happen. And this diagram here describes the different types of relationships that you have every day in your life, and the different levels of trust that exist when you're in these different conversations. The first one are accidents, random encounters. How many of you have sat on an airplane and struck up a conversation with someone for an hour and had a really engaging conversation and got off the airplane and you went your separate ways, never to see or hear from that person again? Now, the only way that those accidents turn into something else is one of you does get a piece of information, a phone number, an email or something, and you are able to connect. But accidents happen, almost on a regular basis throughout our life, standing in line to get a ticket to the greatest concert that you wanted to go to. And you start a conversation. Acquaintances are people in your network where you know them, they know you, but you don't know them real well, or it's a friend of a friend that you were introduced to at some point. So you can connect with them. If it's a friend of a friend, certainly your friend could say to, the person that, Vern would like to connect with Shira. He really thinks that, there'd be a benefit to them learning more about each other. And you can make that connection. Associates are members of the same group. And when you think in terms of networking, associates are the largest number of people in your sphere of living. Because think of all of the groups that you belong to, and every one of the people in every one of those groups is an associate. If you're in an organization, all of the people who work in the company are your associates. Your place of worship, all of the people there are your associates. The gym you belong to, all of the people there are actually associates because you have this common bond. You go to the gym and you see them all the time. PTA meetings, taking your kids to soccer practice, and the parents, in the sidelines of the soccer practice or the Little League baseball field. All of these common things are a beginning way to strike up a conversation pretty easily because you have this common bond. We use the term in context, you have permission to talk to these people. You have this common bond, and it's easy to start a conversation. If you're working for an organization, and let's suppose it's whether it's virtual or it's a brick and mortar building, you can reach out to anybody in that conversation and say, hey, I'd like to learn a little bit more about the marketing function. Do you have some time to talk to me? And most people will. And when you're having those conversations, when you're in an active conversation, that's where the definition that I just shared with you comes into play. You're exchanging, it's a deliberate conversation, you're exchanging information, resources, you're having a conversation, and the more active conversations that you have with any specific individual, the goal is to create the next level of trust, which is an advocate. So an advocate is someone who you've built a trust-based, mutually beneficial relationship with. And it's important to know, how many advocates do I really have in my network? And of course, how many would you like to have? The answer to that is as many as possible. But that takes time and effort, because you don't get to a trust-based, mutually beneficial relationship without a lot of teaching and giving along the way. And when you have that type of a relationship with a person, they are there for you in terms of, information, in terms of helping you, in terms of educating you, in terms of helping you solve problems, and you're there for them. Again, it's teaching and giving. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. And the last little concentric circle here is what we refer to your allies. These are your board of directors, your personal board of directors. This is a small group of people, 6 or 8 people. And what really distinguishes the people who are allies, these are the people you probably shared more of your personal life with than anyone else. This could be a sibling, it could be a college roommate, it could be a coworker that you've developed a relationship with over the years. It could be almost anyone, but it's those that 6 or 8 or 10 people that are there going through life with you, and you're in contact with them on a pretty regular basis. And then finally, last but not least, notice that it says dormant on this slide. we all have relationships with people at one time in our lives that become dormant for one reason or another. Now, I was in the Metro DC area from 2001 to 2014, 15 years. I knew a lot of people in Washington, DC and Virginia and Maryland, worked in all three. And when I moved away, I've lost some of those relationships simply because I'm not in touch with those people on a regular basis. And Shira and I are a perfect example of dormant relationships. Shira and I knew each other back in, the early 2000s. And we knew each other a little bit, before I left DC, but most recently in the last 2 years, we've reconnected. And now Shira invited me to co-host with her in her Friday morning, Higher Moment Mastermind, call. And we've been together now for 18 months or so on the call. And so it's been a relationship that was quickly kind of re-energized, and we've been kind of partners in this as we go along. So at this point, Shira is going to start to talk to, okay, I just told you all these different types of relationships you can have. How do you reach out? How do you make meaningful connections with people along the way? So Shira, I've got to stop sharing now and let you jump in here, right?
Absolutely. I just helped you out with that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is, networking is such an important aspect of your job search. And, Vern mentioned that it's, 80% of jobs are hidden from the market. I think somebody else put in the chat, you should just spend 80% of your time networking and only 20% on the job boards. I couldn't agree with that more. I'd even say less than that on the job boards because it's just so much competition. LinkedIn is one of the best ways that you can leverage your connections. And there are a couple of ways that a couple of reasons why you want to do this. And I want to talk about this for a little bit before we talk about how to, all right? So this first side, I'm going to talk about relationship building, or we can call it rekindling, like actually Vern mentioned, like he and I rekindled a relationship, and here we are co-presenting to you today, because interestingly, what he mentioned is this group that I run called Higher Moment Mastermind. When I'm done with the presentation, I'll put the link in the chat for those who are interested. It's an open job search group that I run now every other Friday. We've been doing this since the beginning of the pandemic. And it's just an open Q&A for job seekers. Well, as it turns out a couple of years ago, we had somebody on the call who had been doing some coaching work with Vern, mentioned to Vern that she was on this call and that I was open to new, co-hosts. And Vern's like, I know Shira. And he randomly gives me a call one day saying, hey, how are you? And I heard about this group. And sure enough, from that day forward, he's been an active and very valuable member of our group. So that was a rekindle. It was a no problem. It was like, hey, Shira, how's it going? And it had been literally like 10 years since we talked to each other. And I mention that because you likely have those dormant relationships where you haven't talked to the person in 5, 10, 15, 25 years, right? As long as you left on good terms and you had a trusted relationship, likely than not, when you reach out, they're going to be like, blast from the past, Jeff, how are you doing? Right? Right. And I want to emphasize that to you because there are going to be different kinds of ways and reasons why you want to rekindle. Relationship building, right, is actually, building from scratch. And that's somebody that maybe is part of your network. For example, in LinkedIn, for those of you who aren't yet on LinkedIn, I say yet because everybody should be. In LinkedIn, we have first level, second level, and third level connections. So your first level is the person that you are connected with. I'm first level connected to Vern. I'm first level connected to Jody. I'm first level connected to Ann Happ, right? All your hosts on this call. However, I'm not yet, I don't think Jeff connected to Jeff Jameson, who's on my screen right now. Hi, Jeff. And so Jeff is probably second level. I'm guessing, let's say he's first level connected to Jody or Ann. He'd be my second level. If I wanted to reach out to Jeff for any reason, because let's say he and I are in the same sort of professional career. He and I are in the same industry, what Vern calls an associate. He is an employer that I want to reach out to. He works for a company where I want to get an interview, right? Any of these things. Jeff could be any one of those people for me. Then I would want to leverage my first level connection, namely Jody or Vern or whoever it is, to get to Jeff. Either mention their name or just have that person, Vern or Jody or Ann, refer me to Jeff. Okay, we're going to be talking about very specifics about how to do that. So one is just relationship building. Maybe you are just wanting to expand your network. But the other, which is very important, is landing an interview through what we call an internal champion. What's that all about? All right, so let's take a breath and talk about this. So the job search world has gotten increasingly more competitive since COVID. Why? Well, one of the many reasons is because of the proliferation of remote jobs. I want you to think about this for a moment. Pre-COVID, most jobs were fully on site. We didn't even call it hybrid then. We just said it's just a job, right? It's located in DC. Maybe there was a little teleworking option, but it was on site, and employers were searching locally. They went to their geography, they searched in the DC area or whatever it is, and they found their candidates. With COVID, I'm going to make this up. I don't know the exact statistic, but anecdotally, it feels to me like at least 50% of all jobs right now are fully remote, which means the employer has access to people ostensibly all over the country. They post a job on LinkedIn, on Indeed, Career Builder, any of those things. Would you like to know how many candidates they get? This is with no exaggeration. 1 to 200 candidates in 24 to 48 hours. Let that sink in for a sec. 100 to 200 candidates in 24 to 48 hours. So much so that sometimes they just take the job down because they're overwhelmed with responses. Your competition has gone 10x, at least 10x. It is that much more important right now for you to find what we call an internal champion, meaning a person who can flag your candidacy to the recruiter, to the hiring manager, to a C-suite person, to maybe somebody else in the organization to say, hey, Jeff's applied to this job. Please airlift his resume out of the database, whether it's an applicant tracking system, whether it's their LinkedIn job board, whatever it is, and please notice Jeff out of the hundreds of candidates that you have. It is so incredibly important to do that now more than ever. I mean, if you take nothing away from this conversation, that is one of the most important things. If you want to get noticed, you can no longer just hit the send button, apply, and assume somebody's going to notice you. There are so many reasons why they will not. A, because of the competition. B, because your resume may or may not have the exact keywords, right, that are in the job posting, which means you should be customizing your resume for every job. That's a different conversation, but that's very important too. It could also simply be that your resume went into cyberspace. So there was some sort of glitch. Maybe you emailed the company directly. Maybe they didn't see it. There's a lot of reasons. You want to get noticed. You need to stand out of the crowd. LinkedIn is a perfect way to do that, all right? And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen in a different way. I'm going to very quickly give you a quick primer on how to use the search features of LinkedIn. Now, when I say a quick primer, what I mean is that I actually normally have a 2-hour discussion about this, and I'm going to put a link in the chat. This is one of the videos from one of the 2-hour LinkedIn trainings that I do for Career Gateway. So remember Jody was telling you about Career Gateway, that week-long program? I happen to be one of the guest speakers. I show up every single time. I've been doing it for 10 years, and they record it every time. I pulled one of those recordings from a couple years ago, and it's on my website, and that is what's in the chat. So if you want the longer version of how to leverage LinkedIn, how to build your brand on LinkedIn, you know, your profile, how to do all the searches, you can do that. Right now, I'm just going to go super, super fast. Look at the search bar, how to find your first level connections and reach them. Once I stop my share there, the next slide here is going to be a quick little screenshots of that. I'm mentioning that because when you see the slide deck is just going to have those little snippets, but the live version is what I'm going to do right now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up LinkedIn. And I want to just quickly show you what you're going to see on that next slide. So first of all, the search bar, okay? This search bar in the upper left-hand corner, which is on all of your pages, is your access to LinkedIn's database, okay? And this is a hidden in plain sight feature. It's here, you just didn't know it. You can put a lot of terms in this search bar. Some people just put in the name of a person. That's wonderful, but actually the real value here is putting keywords in. And the keywords could be putting in For example, a title. Let's say you want to go network with people who are in your profession. You're a marketing person, right? So you put in director of marketing. Okay. And you're going to hit enter, and then all of a sudden, all of these people are going to show up. And in my case, if you hit the people button in the left side, you're going to see, in my case, 4,800,000 people. Now, there are all these different ways to use the all filters tab. This is not the training I'm going to do right now, but you can use the filters tab here, 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 and here to narrow down your search and actually go and meaningfully network with people. But I want to show you that that's where that is. But the other thing I want to show you is how to connect with your first levels. Okay, so these would be your dormant connections. You would go right here to the My Network tab. You're going to, you're going to hit the My Network tab over here. You're going to go to the Connections button. Okay, and then you're going to hit Search with Filters. And when you hit Search with Filters, you can narrow down your own connections by leveraging the search bar. So if I wanted to find the marketing people in my own networking, right? I'm just going to go director of marketing. I'm going to find 3,600 people, as it turns out, right? Emily, Jessica, Charles, and so forth. Okay. And you'll see here already LinkedIn highlights the fact that these are first level connections. And because they're first level connections, I can message them. And the messaging is right here, is free for everyone. You do not need premium to use the messaging feature, but you can write them a message all day long. But if you are a second level or a third level connection, you can't do that. You have to connect with the person first, then this message feature will come up. Okay. So again, there's a lot more that I could be sharing about this, but I wanted to at least show you what the what that feature is. Okay, so coming back here, so real fast, right? So just remember, you're going to use the search bar in the upper left-hand corner. You're going to go to the My Network tab. You're going to see the connections. You're going to go to the Search with Filters, and you're then going to type in the name of whatever the keyword search is, and that's the search that will come up. And then here you can use, like I said, you can use the same search for your second level contacts. All right. So that's just a very, very quick primer. But what we really want to talk about today is what do you do once you actually connect with these folks, and in what ways do you want to connect with them? So here we go. The first thing is reconnecting with first level connections in your profession or your industry. I'm calling this relationship rekindling. These are the dormant people. So we're going to slow down and talk about this for a second. You have so many wonderful breadcrumbs, Hansel and Gretel, in your past relationships. I know you have. You have people that you have built trusted relationships with. You know, they say people do business with people they know, like, and trust. I know for a fact you have them because you have a wide network, right? You've got colleagues, you've got neighbors, you've got family members, you've got friends, you've got people, again, you met at conferences 25 years ago. You have people that trust you. And so the reason why you'd want to reconnect with these people is for two reasons. Ready? Because they want to help you. They actually do want to help you. If you have a relationship with them, they were in your life for some good reason, and they are there right now wanting to hear from you so that they can actually be of help to you. And the other reason why they need your help too. This is relationship building. Now, I want to pause here because a lot of folks, especially when they're long-term transition, especially if you're feeling a little bit insecure, a little bit lack of confidence in your search, maybe you've been in job search for a while, maybe you're fearful of age discrimination. There could be a whole host of reasons why people feel a little bit nervous about networking. And I'd like to help you reframe that in your mind. It's like this. If you feel that in rekindling a relationship or even reaching out to people who are new in your life is an imposition on them, I'd like to help you shift your mindset. When you are reaching out to your network, your existing network or your future network, you are actually offering yourself to them as a blessing. You're a blessing to them, right? Why? Because these are people who have needs, whether they have needs themselves or they have colleagues that have needs. You have gifts and talents to offer them. Because at the end of the day, why do we work? Sure, we got to eat, but we really work to serve, don't we? We work to serve, we work to make an impact. If you did not reach out to your network to let them know that you are available to offer your gifts and talents to them, you'd be denying them the blessing of knowing you. If I were not on this call, if Vern were not on this call, you would not have access to this rich information, right? We need to be out here letting you know what we do. And you know what? There might be some of you who want to follow up with me or Vern on a little more of a formal basis because you have some more specific needs. If we were not here, you would not know about that. Is that right? It's the same thing when you're networking. You need to let people know how you can help them so that if they hear of an opportunity where you can help, they can let you know, they can know that you're on the market. It's not about you, it's about them. So depending upon the kind of trust that you've built when you last saw them, I'm telling you, they should be very happy to hear you. It should be just like when Vern and I reconnected, okay? Now, I will suggest here that if it's an acquaintance or an associate, that Vern mentioned, right? Those are people who you don't necessarily have a deep relationship with. You might need to remind them of where you met, okay? But we're going to kind of go through a couple of scenarios here. All right, so here we go. How do you actually do this, right? Now, the first thing I want to mention, and this is a little bit of a technical thing. If you are reaching out to a first level connection, please, 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 please reach out through the LinkedIn message and email them both. Why? First of all, a lot of people aren't checking their LinkedIn. Okay. You could have a connection request. You could have a message sitting in there for months and nobody's going to see it because people are busy, particularly if they're gainfully employed, right? And have a very busy life. So you definitely want to follow up with an email. I will show you later on where to find email addresses in your first levels. And you do both. Or in other words, don't just email them, also LinkedIn, right? Because you never know which one they're going to get because there are emails that go into spam filters, okay? And you're trying to schedule a Zoom call or a face-to-face chat. Yes, we are getting out of the house these days. Woohoo! I'm trying to do it myself. Try to go for a coffee if somebody will actually, meet with you. But the point is that if you have a first level, you have met with, you have a trusted relationship, try to schedule this meeting. So I'm going to give you now my first sample message. And here we go. So when you're reaching out to Jane, Jane is your first level contact. You have some sort of relationship with her from the past. Hi, Jane, hope you're well. It's been some time since we last connected in person. Wanted to invite you for a Zoom catch-up call to hear how you're doing. Also happy to share some developments on my end. Okay, if I toss out some dates, let me know if there are any days I should avoid in the next few weeks. Look forward to catching up. Would you all feel comfortable writing a message like this? I hope you're nodding your heads, right? This is a very simple, kind, thoughtful, easy to read LinkedIn outreach. I will share with you that I did this myself, actually over the holidays. Holidays were a little bit slow for me, as for most people. And I said, you know what? This is a great time. Let me go ahead and reconnect with my own network. And I did something almost exactly like this. I just started out with Happy New Year. That's the only difference. Let me tell you guys, boom, boom. I mean, people were just like flowing. I'm like, Cheryl, great to hear from you. Absolutely happy to catch up. Over the next 2 months, I was busier than a one-arm paper hanger. I was like Zoom calling like all month long, 2 months, because all these people are like, wow, thank you for reaching out. And I got on those calls and I opened up with them. I didn't make it about me. I'm like, hey, Susie, hey, Fred, hey, Mary, how's it going? What's been going on with you? What's keeping you up? And they were, and I was listening for ways that I could help them. And then, of course, they asked about me and I shared. Right? But we had a lovely reconnect conversation. And actually, in a couple of slides from now, I'm going to be having somebody come on this call who is one of my coaching clients who successfully used this and has been having some great networking conversations. Her name is Robin Seaman. I think she's already on the call. And she's going to share a little testimonial of how this worked for her. Okay, so it does work. So this is the first one I wanted to share with you. The second one is relationship building. All right, so this is with when you're connecting to second level connections in your profession or industry. So why would you do this? Well, for a few reasons. First of all, because you share a common interest and might be able to be mutually helpful. So imagine, again, you're a marketing professional, or imagine you're in the environmental sector, you're in the nonprofit sector, you're commercial real estate, whatever profession you're in or whatever industry you're in. If you are a gainfully employed person, or even if you're not, right, you want to network. You want to build a community with people who can help you and where you can help each other. Why do you think associations exist? For those of you who are in the DC area who know about associations, we've got one for everything, right? These are membership organizations. The reason why associations exist at a national level or at a chapter level is for people to help each other. So I know you may not believe it, but Coke and Pepsi sit down at I think it's the American Beverage Association and have networking conversations. They're competitors, but they're in the same industry and there are ways that they can help each other. People in the American Bar Association, right? They're all lawyers and they get together and they help each other. There is this community, right, sense that people have. You can build your own community. People want to know how you can help them and how they can help you. The second reason, and one of the most important for your job search, is because they could possibly share job opportunities that aren't right for them, but could be right for you. Now, let me tell you how that works and why that works. Jody mentioned in the intro that I'm not just a career coach, resume writer, and such. I'm also a recruiter. I have been for many, many years. And I will tell you, as a recruiter, we believe in the birds of a feather mindset. When we reach out to search for candidates, and most of us use LinkedIn in that search bar. If I'm looking for a director of marketing, right, I'm going to put that title in there. I am assuming that directors of marketing hang out with other directors of marketing. Why do I know that? Because of groups like the American Marketing Association, okay? There are community groups all over, and even if you're not a member of one, likely you know other people in your profession or you know other people in your industry. So when I'm reaching out and I'm talking to Jane or emailing, messaging Jane, who's the marketing person, and if the job's not right for them, it could be right for Jeff. I'm assuming that. You need to reverse osmosis, right? You need to look at the other way around and say, oh, I need to be in Jane's network because when she hears about an opportunity that's not right for her, it could be right for me. That's one of the main reasons to do it. And the third one is for those of you who are career changers on this call, which if I know of the 50+ community very well, there's probably half of you are thinking about doing a career change for all kinds of reasons. If you are looking to change into a new profession or particularly into a new community, into a new industry, these are the people who can be a fabulous support network for you. Why? The people in that, particularly in that industry or that sector, need to know that you're serious about moving into that sector. So for example, let's take the environmental world. A lot of people want to go into work for environmental nonprofits these days, understandably. Fine. Well, let's say you come from the for-profit sector, having nothing to do with that world. You just have an interest, a passion, but you're not actually from that work world. You go and you start networking with the environmentalists over and over. You start having those Zoom calls. You find out where their local associations are, local networking, nonprofit groups, whatever. All of a sudden, you're known in that community. And I actually had a client years ago who did that very thing. She moved from corporate into environmental. And one of the ways she did it was she started networking within that community. She found this group called, I think it's called We See Women and I don't know, it's like conservation, environment, energy, something like that. And she started plugging into those groups and built all these relationships, and she eventually landed, okay? So LinkedIn is a great way to actually start teeing up those relationships. So here's another sample message for you, ready? All right, so John is your second level connection, and you're reaching out for whatever it is, but here is just a very simple way to do it. Hi, John, we're connected through Mary Smith, okay? So Mary is my Jody, Mary is my Vern, Mary is my first level connection. I'm reaching out because we share some career interests in the X industry or the X profession, and I'm hoping you might be open to exploring synergies, something very, very simple. Let me know if you're interested in a Zoom chat and I'll toss out some dates. Now, understand too that this message is short, not just because it needs to be short. It's also short because when you send a connection message on LinkedIn, it can only be 300 characters, not 300 words, 300 characters. You gotta keep it short. Part of why I kept this short, all right? You cannot add a lot of detail here. But this, again, this is just for relationship building purposes. This is not the message you're gonna use if you are trying to get an internal champion for an interview. I got a slide for that too, but it's just for the relationship building, all right? So now Robin is here. Anne, if you can, or Justin, if you can unmute her mic. So Robin is going to very quickly share. Hi, Robin. She's going to very quickly share her testimonial. Robin, just quick backstory. So Robin is a graphic designer. And Robin came to me in a coaching capacity and wanted to sort of rebuild her network and wanted to, first things first is to leverage her old connections. And I shared with her how I just shared with you guys to do that. And she has a little story to share. So Robin, you want to share with folks?
So much. I'm so excited actually to be here and share this. And before I share what I wanted to share, I'm going to share something else because I literally just came from a one-on-one Zoom meeting with someone who falls under the like I knew someone and that someone knew this person category. And so I was talked with the person I knew and said, hey, I'm a graphic designer, I'm ramping up my business. And who do you know that would be good for me to talk to? And they said, oh, I know this person who runs their own marketing firm. You know, here's their info. Robin meet you, you meet Robin. And so we set up the Zoom and of course, I've never seen this person before in my life. He was so thrilled to talk to me, the nicest person. I was so thrilled to talk to him. And because he does marketing and most of what he does is websites and search engine optimization, whatever, not at all what I do, but he has clients who need what I do. And he said, oh, Robin, if something comes in and someone needs an annual report or they need some graphic work and need something, I'm going to send them to you. We literally just met on Zoom for like 5 minutes and he already
That's
wants to
great.
send people to me. And it was really lovely. It was really exciting. So we'll see, something may come of it, something may not, but it was very encouraging. And so now I'll tell you about something related to like the LinkedIn letter that Shira just showed you. So I went through all my contacts on LinkedIn and people who were, you know, who I knew who were in my first level that fairly had something to do with what I do. I'm a graphic designer, so people that did communications or marketing, something somewhat related, and sent out my emails to everyone. And I just heard back this week from a woman who I think I worked on a project with her. I am not kidding you, probably 20 years ago. And I'm like, well, you know, she's an art director and wow, we did this project 20 years ago. I'll send her something. And this was like weeks ago that I sent out. And I heard this week, Robin, I'm so sorry it's taken me so long. We are so swamped. Our creative department is overloaded. That's why it's taken me so long to get back to you. It's you know, and I wrote back and said, you know, working with overloaded creative departments is exactly what I do. So let's, you know, Howard, we were working on she's really busy because she's overloaded. So we're working on time to meet up and see what she needs. But she was so thrilled to hear from me because their department is so overloaded that they need to hire out people to do some of the work. So I think it very much fits in with Shira's point of we are now both blessings for each other because she's going to be thrilled to have someone to help her overloaded department. I'm going to be thrilled to have, you know, this work to come in, and it's going to be great because I sent out this 3-line LinkedIn email weeks ago to someone I worked with on a project like 20 years ago.
And Robin, how did you feel when you remember when you first, we've
Oh,
had
I
our
was
first meeting?
terrified. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, these poor schlubs don't want to hear from me. Like, we haven't seen each other in 20 years. This is going to be ridiculous. And then I was like, okay, so what do? They just say, oh, sorry, I'm really busy, can't talk to you, or they just ignore my email. Like, that's
But
probably the worst that could happen.
and that's not what happened, right?
And that's not what happened. I mean, I'm sure for some of, you know, I send out a lot because it's you know, it's
Volume. You have to
numbers.
do
If I send
volume.
out 100 and only hear back from
Right.
25, and
That's right.
but even still, like, totally worth it. And when I heard back from her, and she's not the only one I've heard back from, she was just like the most recent thing. It felt so great. Wow, this person wrote back and she's so excited. And I've had many Zoom calls individually with people, and I would say 98% thrilled to hear from me, want to find stuff for me to do. Like, oh, you know, these things come up, or if something comes up, you're going to be the person I'm going to call. And then it's also good for me because if I have people that I work with and they need something that's not exactly what I do, now I know people who do that. And how good is that for my client that I'm still, even though I'm not doing the work, I'm still helping them. And now they're like, oh, Robin she's the helpful one. She's the one that connected me to this videographer or this, you know, SEO person or this whatever that I needed. so I could still be of service for them.
And so
And
now you've expanded the ecosystem,
Mhm.
right?
yes,
So they're helping you, you're helping them. And remember too, when you started, and there was and guys, I hope everybody on this call understands why I brought Robin on this call, because Robin is you. Robin is all of you,
100%.
right? 100%. Like when she came to me, it was like, what do I do? I'm like, okay, it's okay. Right? And gave her this messaging and gave her the framework. And Robin, you jumped in the water. You realized it was warmer than you thought. And you started swimming. And all of a sudden, people just start, right, reaching back out. And that builds your confidence. It shows how much, again, you can be a blessing mutually. And now you're like going on. And now we just recently talked about, okay, next level. Let's go to the second level of connections, right? And you're going to keep it going. So I just want to encourage everyone, start with your first level connections. These warm connections that you've had over the years, just reach out and let them know that you are here to help them. That's the whole point of this. And Robin, it worked for you, right? And you're feeling confident.
Yeah, and it got to be from being like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Like, how do I do this? And I'm like, I'm just gonna follow the text that Shira sent me, that like, so because I'm like, I know what I'm supposed to do, but how do I
Follow
do
the
that?
process, right?
So I follow the process, and now it's to a point where it's even, dare I say, a little fun to reach out and talk to people, because I'm finding that the people do want to, and no matter how busy someone is, they have a half an hour. Like, everyone has a half an hour.
But you
And
built a
they'll-
trusted relationship, and that was the point. And they're
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and they want to talk to you and see what you can do for each
Oh,
other.
thank you.
So
Thank you,
that's
Robin,
nice.
for showing up. Thank you for the encouraging words. We appreciate you. Thank
Sure.
you.
So keep at it.
Yay.
Shira, there are a couple of questions. Do you mind? Is this a good time or not right now?
If it's related to this, sure.
Let's see. Okay, someone said, any tips, and I guess you've answered this, because rekindling dormant relationships.
Yep.
Because you just don't want to say I'm job hunting, but
Yeah,
you've kind
yeah.
of answered that. Mhm,
Well, so if you notice, right?
Mhm,
Let me go back here,
mhm.
right here. All right. A dormant relationship means, look at the first sentence or second sentence. It's been some time since we connected in person. You're acknowledging the fact that it's dormant. Okay. Wanted to invite you for a Zoom catch-up call to hear how you're doing. Also happy to share some developments on my end. That's it. Because at the end of the day, I understand your reason for reaching out is the fact that you're job searching. But at the end of the day, this is somebody that you have had some sort of relationship with, which means that you actually want to, I hope, know how they're doing, how you can help them. Maybe there's other stuff going on your end, not just your job search. You're having a relationship, you're rekindling the relationship, right? So you don't have to, you could mention, yeah, I'm also in a job search, but that's not even the point. The point
Mhm.
is to rekindle the relationship for mutual benefit. And then when they say, hey, so remember, and so Vern will talk about in this next
Mhm.
part of the presentation how to do this, but one of the things you want to remember when you're getting on the call is make it about them, not just about you. When they open the call and they say, oh, Robin, how you doing? Hey, Jody, how you doing? You say, I'm happy to share with you. Actually, Susie, I'd love to hear about you. What's going on with you? And get them to talk. So you can see how you can help them. Then when the tables naturally turn back to you, yes, share your job search, share other things in your life, and rekindle the warmth of the relationship to see how you can help each other.
Mhm.
That helps.
Great. And is it bad form? This is a LinkedIn question. Is it bad form to just post something on LinkedIn for all your network to see that just updates them? Like, I'm still on the job hunt for the next
Not at
opportunity.
all. Not
This
at
is
all.
what I'm looking for.
It's not bad form. Now, I wouldn't do that every week, but it's not bad form because you never know who is reading it that actually needs to know, right? And I've seen that happen. The LinkedIn's become more popular for that kind of thing. I've noticed. Every once in a while, I'll see someone go, hey, everybody, just wanted to reach out to my network, let you know. And I see all the comments. People are like, oh, great, thanks for letting me know you're searching. I'm happy to introduce you to people, blah, 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 or whatever they're going to say. No, it's not.
Mhm.
These days, it's not bad form, but just once in a while.
Great, wonderful. Someone posted, I just learned non-premium LinkedIn members, which we really kind of for the normal typical job
Basic-
seeker,
the
we call it
basic
not to
free.
pay. That non-LinkedIn, non-premium LinkedIn members could only send so many
That's right.
personalized invitations. Try to connect with everyone. This individual tried to connect with everyone and she received no free personalized invitations left.
Okay, so,
Mhm.
yeah.
So what do you suggest?
Yeah, I know, right? So what Jody's referring to, yes, this is a brand new LinkedIn business model move. Okay. Yeah, this happened, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, less than that, something like that. Yeah, so it used to be that you could just, send out almost as many connection invitations as you wanted to, and that people, you could do, you can't do that anymore. I think it's something like 10. I think you can do 10 a month. I know we in the job search community are appalled. We're like,
Mhm.
no, this is impacting people's job search. So what's going to be important is that, yeah, so first of all, make sure that the people that you do connect with are meaningful, not just anyone. Number two, for second level connections, you're going to try to have to leverage, and I have another slide around this, around leveraging your first level. So instead of just, so let's say, Jane is, Mike actually has his hand up. So Mike, you're on my mind. Mike is the second level. Okay. So instead of just sending out a connection request to Mike and mentioning Mary's name, all right, what I would actually have to do then is not do that. I'd have to go directly to Mary, who's my first level connection, and I can send her as many messages as I want, or I can send her an email. It'd say, hey, Mary, excuse me, I noticed on LinkedIn that you're connected to Mike, right? And here's why I'm looking to meet Mike. Would you consider brokering an introduction? It takes longer. I will tell you it's more effective because it's a relational way to do it, but it might take longer because Mary's busy. Mary doesn't see your email. Mary forgets, Mary, whatever. But that's the way to get around this, is to actually leverage the first levels. Now, third level connections, you're not going to have any recourse, because for third level connections, LinkedIn does not tell you who's in the middle. They will only tell you who's in the middle between your with your second level. One more technical, also glitchy thing. I don't know why this happens. I'm going to say 1% of the time, when you open up a second level connection, normally you see right underneath the name, it says, you have one mutual connection, or Fred Smith is your mutual connection, or you have 5 mutual connections. 1% of the time that doesn't show up. I don't know why. I think it's a glitch. So if you don't happen to see the mutual connection, I'm so sorry, but normally you will. And then you just open up that list. Maybe you have 5 mutual connections, pick the one that you have a closest relationship to, write that person an email, and then ask them to broker an introduction.
Okay. And then that kind of relates to that. So for second level, you can only go through LinkedIn. Is that correct? Is there any way to get their contact details so that you can email them?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
So there's different services. One of them is called Zoom Info, ZOOMINFO, Zoom Info. Another one is called Signal Hire, HIRE. The word Signal, HIRE. There's another one that somebody just told me about. I completely forgot, but those are the 2 that I recall, and you can look them up. It's what's called a plugin. So you subscribe, you get normally a few for free, and then you have to subscribe, and it plugs into your LinkedIn, and it'll literally just hang out in your LinkedIn. So when you get that, so you can actually, they'll pop up, Mike's name, and then you can pop in, you can click on the Signal Hire little button, and it'll come up with what it thinks is his email address. Doesn't
Okay.
get it 100% correct, not necessarily, but at least it's one way to do that. Sometimes we recruiters will use that if we want to reach somebody directly. We will use that kind of service.
Can you, when you have a moment, Chair, can you just put those 2 things in the chat? Just so
Yeah,
people
I'll go ahead and actually do that.
Okay.
Right, I'll do that right now.
Wonderful. So you've answered the questions that we've had thus far. So, you can, I don't know if Vern is going to continue, or so you could take it away. And I think Anne now is going to be doing the moderating. So
Okay,
we're
sounds good.
yeah.
Sounds good. All right, so we're going to keep on going. So relationship building, I mentioned this. I mentioned the message, right? And we talked about Robin. All right, now we're going to talk about landing an interview. All right, so this is the whole idea of finding an internal champion to get your resume noticed. So why? We've talked about this, right? The online job boards are flooded with competition. 80% of jobs are hid from the market. A third reason is that someone could create a new job for you. Very interesting. I don't know if this has ever happened to anyone, or you know of anybody this has happened to, but it might just be that you reach out to someone at just the right time where that employer goes, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Robert, like you just have these skills that we've been looking for. I think we could actually create something for you. You never know. You never know. So this is one of the many reasons why you should be reaching out to people. So how do you do this? I want you to think about 4 different kinds of people that could be your internal champions. And I put this kind of in order. Obviously the hiring manager. What I mean by that is, it's not that the hiring manager is your internal champion. You're going to find somebody to get your resume to the hiring manager. Here's how it works, okay? Now, every company is a little different in how they do their recruiting, okay? But let's just say a classic model would be hiring manager has an opening. Let's just say they have a human resources department. Maybe they have a corporate recruiter, an internal recruiter who specializes just in recruiting, maybe. But anyway, they have an HR department who's typically doing the screening. That HR department is overwhelmed. That recruiter is overwhelmed. They have all these job openings. They've got all these candidates. They're busy people. Your resume gets, goes into a black hole in their applicant tracking system or in LinkedIn, whatever. You might be perfectly qualified, but nobody knows it because nobody's seeing you because of technical glitches. So that hiring manager, if that hiring manager receives your resume from anybody internally, could be any employee. And by the way, some companies have what's called an employee referral bonus, which means that not all companies do this, but some do. Whereas, so if the employee refers a candidate, the candidate gets hired and the new employee stays for 6 months to a year, that person could get $1,000, $1,500, something like that. So it's kind of like that company's own internal recruiting pool. So the hiring manager gets your resume forwarded to them by somebody internally. The hiring manager's like, great, Robert, looks like a great resume. Glad you flagged it because otherwise it would have been hidden in the database. Okay. So you want to get somebody to reach out to the hiring manager or the HR person or recruiter or someone in the CEO C-suite level who can sort of pass your resume down the food chain, or just somebody in or close to the department that you're applying for. Any of those people can work, right? So as I'm just to allude to what I was talking about earlier, this is about leveraging your first level connection. So the most effective way, presuming you're still within your 10 connection requests, or if you decide, by the way, to go premium, which could be a reason to do that, that will give you, I think, unlimited connection requests. And if you do go premium, by the way, I would recommend that you go to the second level of premium. I think they call it Pro. It's the one that's $60 a month. Go month to month, obviously don't buy it for the year. But if you do that, you can have unlimited. But either way, the most effective is to reach out to your first level connection via LinkedIn message and email and ask for the brokering of that introduction. The most efficient way through the front door, of course, is to send a connection invitation directly. I'm sorry, not connection invitation. Send a LinkedIn message to your first level. I'm so sorry. Send a connection request to the second level and mention your first level's name. All right. So you can mention the Mary Smith. All right. So I'm going to get very specific here, right? In how this works. So here's an example. So you have a second level connection who works at your target company. You are going to send them a LinkedIn connection because you've already applied for the job and you want a referral to the hiring manager, recruiter, or HR person. And here is a sample message. Hi, John, second level person. We're connected through Mary Smith. You're name dropping, right? I recently applied for the project manager role. As there likely have been a volume of applicants, would you be open to flagging my candidacy to the whoever it is, hiring manager, recruiter, for extra consideration? Once we connect, I'll send you my application. Many thanks. Why do I say once we connect? Because in your connection message, that 300 character blurb, you cannot attach anything. No attachments. They have to connect with you first. Once they do, now you can message them. And in the messaging field, now you can upload your resume and your cover letter. Okay. So by the way, notice this, you should already apply. Then you want to send this. Now there is a little caveat to this. Remember I mentioned the employee referral bonus? the way that the person gets the employee referral bonus is if they refer you and get credited for referring you to the job. So it's a little bit tricky, right? Because on the one hand, you kind of want to apply first so that somebody can grab your resume from the database. On the other hand, if there's an employee that wants to refer you, you can't have applied first, right? Because you have to mention their name. So it's going to work best if you actually do know somebody who works at that company. I would just reach out to them first, just straight up, mention that you want to apply. Do they have an employee referral bonus? And if so, should you mention their name? Okay, but for generally speaking, this is the way to do it. So here's another scenario. So another scenario is you have a first level connection who knows the hiring manager, recruiter, HR person, or so forth. Again, you've already applied for the job. You want your application to be forwarded to one of those people. And again, send the message via email in case they missed LinkedIn. And here's a note. Hi, Susie. Hope you're doing well. I'm reaching out because I noticed you're connected to Sally Smith. Now, Sally Smith is the hiring manager, recruiter, even C-suite. I recently applied for their project management role. Would appreciate you forwarding my application to her for extra consideration since I'm sure she's swamped with candidates. Attached are the cover letter and resume recently submitted. Thanks so much for your help. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. Notice this is a longer message. Why? Because it's a message. It's not a connection invitation. In your message, you can write as much as you want. And you can attach the cover letter. Okay. So the first one is a LinkedIn connection request, and the second one is a LinkedIn message. Right. Now, obviously, you can play with the language here, warm it up, do whatever, you know, customize it to yourself. There are all these different permutations, but I at least wanted to give you some sample messaging that you can mold. Okay. All right. Now, again, remember, I've said this 1,000 times. Send the message, send the email. To find somebody's email address in the contact section of their LinkedIn profile, and I've pulled up Vern as an example. You pull up the person's LinkedIn profile, and notice. This is a first level. They have to be a first level. Notice right here is the contact info button. Click on that. Now this little box will pop up and you'll see now there's their email. Or I should say 98% of the time you'll see their email. 2% you won't. Why? If that person is so private, they don't want anybody to see their email address, including their first level connections, they might not include that. 98% of the time, it's going to be right here. By the way, just in terms of your normal day-to-day activities, forget a job search, just in general, it's a really wonderful thing. It's a great little database, right? Many times I've forgotten people's email address, and I just quickly pop their name into LinkedIn and I go and find their contact info and it reminds me. Okay, so this is just a great little tip. And then finally, when you're reaching out to your second level, remember, max 300 characters. Now here's a networking tip for you. If you ask them for a meeting and they agree, I recommend follow up with 3 date options. Do not simply say, hey, just let me know what dates work for you. You know why? That's overwhelming. And it puts too much pressure on them for them to look at their calendar and offer you dates. You're the one who's asking for the meeting. Make it easy for them to pick a date. Okay. Ask for the 3, not 20 dates, 3. Maybe, and you can vary it, maybe like an early morning, a lunch, just close of business, that kind of thing for 30 minutes, not an hour. And just reach out. And then hopefully, either they'll pick one, or if it's not right for them, then they can say, well, I can't do those dates. And then they'll suggest an alternate date, but don't leave it wide open because then the meeting will probably never happen. Okay. So now I'm going to turn it back to Vern, and Vern is going to kind of show you how to frame the networking discussion, how you want to have that conversation. And we'll take it from there. Right, Vern?
All right. Everybody see the screen? We good, Jody? Okay. Well, in the interest of time, I'm going to try to move fairly quickly because I do want to leave time for questions and answers. I know there's probably some questions that people want answered. So the last part of my presentation is focused around teaching and giving and sharing a couple of skills that you can use to communicate your expertise and understanding the concept of giving and the types of things that you can give. You are going to get a copy of the slides within the next 24 to 48 hours. So some of that information that I'm going to share with you, I'm going to skip because I think the slide's pretty much self-explanatory. But as I go through these, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. And like I said, I'm going to try to wrap up here in the next 10 minutes or so. So I've already talked about what networking is. It isn't about talking and taking, it's about teaching and giving. So I'm going to go by that. And when we say it's about teaching and we talk about communicating your expertise, the very first time that you have an opportunity to teach someone about yourself is when you get the infamous question, what do you do? And I guess if I ask you to raise your hands, every single person on this call would say, yeah, I've been asked that question. And a lot of times people answer that question with some form of their profession, their industry, their title, professional designation. I'm a VP of HR. I'm an attorney. I'm a registered nurse. I work in cybersecurity. I work for Amazon. Whatever they say, first of all, doesn't answer the question. The question is, what do you do? And so you really haven't told them what you do. You've given your title or whatever. And the second problem with answering it that way is you've missed this opportunity. This is your first opportunity to teach someone something about yourself. So at Contacts Count, we think there's a much better way to answer the what do you do question. And we call it a best test answer. And it's 2 sentences. It is short and it is to the point. One thing that you do best or want to teach others about yourself, and a testimonial, an example of the time when you use that skill or that expertise to have some positive outcome. So I'm going to share with you and give you just a few seconds here to read some examples of what a best test answer would look like. Now, one of the most common objections we get when we're working with an individual or a team is, oh my God, I could never do this. It sounds like boasting. And our response to that is, if you do not teach someone about who you are and what you do, how in the world can they possibly help you? And this is a short introduction. They ask you what you do and you respond with 2 sentences. And one of the problems that people have when they first try to do this is they write 2 paragraphs. And that's a mistake, a big mistake, because when you answer with a good best test answer, one of 2 things will probably happen. The person will be so interested in your best test answer, they'll ask you another question. Well, tell me more about XYZ. So now they're inviting you to teach them more about who you are. Or you'll get some non-committal response. Well, that's interesting. And if that happens, then you automatically switch to giving. Forget about teaching at this point. If they're not open to, asking you more questions or learning more, then just ask them. So tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do? And switch the conversation back to them. Again, you're going to get copies of these slides. So if we had more time, I'd actually have you write out a couple of these, or at least write one example of a best test answer. If you'd like to do that and get my feedback, my email will be at the end of the slide. So
Actually, I just put both of our emails in the chat, just in case.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Shira.
Mhm.
Go ahead and do that. And I can give you some, feedback. And again, this is the type of thing, notice on this slide, it's 2 sentences, not 2 paragraphs. You really have to practice this. If I ask you to do this right now and somebody volunteered to share it with the group, you'd probably read it right off the piece of paper because you wouldn't have it down pat. And you keep practicing until you can respond as easily as somebody asking your name. So I'll give you my example of the way not to do it. What do you do? I'm the president and CEO of Contacts Count. That really doesn't mean too much to most people. If you ask me what I do, I'll say that I teach people the skills and behaviors to build trust-based, mutually beneficial relationships. One of the most rewarding programs I did was with MBA students at George Washington University, where they said the program literally changed their lives. Quick, short, to the point, and then you use your judgment as to if the person asks you more about it, that's fine. But consciously be aware of what Shira has stressed here. That again, it's teaching and giving. So at some point, you've got to, in that conversation, make sure you're making an effort to find out more about them so that, is there a possibility you can help them or give back to them in some way? The other skill that I'm sure all of you are using at this point in time is being able to tell a short, quick story. And I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to read a story, and I'm going to ask you to put in the chat, what did you learn by this story? And this is after you meet someone and they ask you what you do, the types of questions you get in the second or third conversation with that same person are the types of things that, how are you? What's new? How have you been? What's going on with you? Anything like that. And so that's a cue. That's a conversational cue. You can tell a short story. So this is a real life story, true story from the founder of Contacts Count. Someone in her network asked her, so what's new with you? And so as you listen to this, just put in the chat what you've learned about Lynn in this 50-second short story. Well, I have to tell you about a really challenging training experience I had last week. When I walked into the hotel conference room in Seattle, where I was going to teach a 3-day negotiation skills course, I was so happy that it had floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the bay. But within the first hour, I realized everybody, including me, couldn't take their eyes off the water. I could feel a longing to be out there. So that night, I negotiated with the boat company that takes people back to Victoria, it takes people to Victoria and back. And for the next 2 days, we had our class on the boat. People were so grateful to be on the water. They worked very hard, had a great successful learning experience, enjoyed their breaks and lunch strolling around the boat. So what did you learn about Lynn in that 50-second short story?
She's a problem solver.
She's a problem solver.
She's an innovator. Lynn teaches large events, negotiates and innovates to come challenges. She's creative. She understands people and problem solves. Lots of money to hire a boat. She's observant. She's a doer. She improves.
Yeah.
She paid attention to her audience. So a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. And so that took 50 seconds. So let me read it again, but I'm gonna go through the storytelling formula. I won't read the whole thing, but segue. And so what's new with you? Segue. I have to tell you about a challenging training experience. Situation, when I walked into the hotel conference room. Snafu, situation normal, all fouled up. Here was the problem. Everybody wanted to be out on the water. Solution, I hired the boat company. Significance, we had a great training experience. People liked being on the boat. They were really, thrilled that the training took place that way. And I'm sure all of you have used either this or something similar to prepare your stories for an interview. There's lots of different ways to put together a story. This is just one way. And I'm sure you've heard, the STAR formula, the SOAR formula, the PAR formula, but you need to obviously have your stories ready when it comes time to get into an interview situation. So the other part of teaching and giving is the giving part. And we use this analogy of an iceberg because when we have a first or second or third conversation with somebody, we're beginning to learn who they are, but we all know that there's so much more to any one individual than what we learn in the first, few conversations. And it's over time, as you have more and more conversations and you think about questions that, that focus on, and you learn about the emotions of the people, you seek an opinion and you think about how they think and how they problem solve. You ask them, what do you think about this? And they give you their opinion. I'm thinking about doing X, Y, Z. What do you think about X, Y, Z? all of those types of questions, you're learning about them. And again, you're learning about their character, you're learning about their interests, you're learning about their abilities, and hopefully they're doing the same with you. And that's how you get to the point of having a trust-based, mutually beneficial relationship with someone. This slide you can read for yourself. These are just some sample questions that we happen to like. There are literally thousands of questions. There's books on questions and the power of questions. And this slide just says, you know, a lot of people say, oh, what could I possibly give? There's a lot of things you can give. And so if you go through this slide and think about yourself and think about your skills and your experiences, you know, what can you give back to others? And so during conversations with others, you're listening for the give. You're listening for how you might help someone in some way. And once you develop a relationship, you know, a trust-based, mutually beneficial relationship, the gives almost come naturally. I just saw an article that I know someone in my network would like to see. So without even thinking about it, I'm going to send her an email and attach the article and say, you know, Jen, I'm pretty sure you'd be interested in seeing this. And so there's a lot of simple gives. The bigger gives that happen in the situation that most of you are in now is I just discovered there's an opportunity at ABC Company, and I think you'd be a great fit for it. So they're giving you that information, which obviously is critical to your success in the job search. Albert Einstein said, learning is an experience, everything else is information. So Shira and I have given you lots of information, and to make the best use of this information, you've got to use it. Shira gave you some great, very specific techniques to use. And again, you're going to get a copy of the slides so you can use this information to reach out and continue to network and build relationships. And next steps, the one thing that I want to make sure you're aware of is these 8 competencies that we developed. We have an online assessment, 20 minutes. You actually get a 12-page report on your skills and abilities for each one of the 8 competencies. And I'm making the offer to anybody on the call, free complimentary access to this networking competency assessment. So if you'd like that, make sure that you send me an email, put it in the subject line NCA, that stands for Networking Competency Assessment. Make sure I have your name, your email address, and just mention Northern Virginia Employment Conference, and I'll get a link to take this assessment out to you within the next 24 to 48 hours. And with that, I want to end here so we have some time for questions and answers.
Thank you both. That was quite informative and lots to think about. We have a lot of thank yous coming in. If there are any questions that you have for Vern or Shira, please put them in chat now because they do have a little bit of time and they're happy to answer them. And let me just go scroll down here for a second.
So I'm going to address one of them. When that just came in, someone asked if there's any way to see whether someone has read your message on LinkedIn. So not exactly. So they don't have a red, thing like you have in chat, and like how iPhone says, a red message. The only way you actually would know is if you happen to be on LinkedIn at the very time that they are writing to you, you're going to see those little 3 dots, right? But then of course that they're reading it. But other than that, there's no actual red message. Sorry, not that I know of.
And do you all have any information on how recruiters are responding today? Because I get asked this question a lot, and I see in the chat that someone's talked about that they've reached out to people on LinkedIn. They really haven't heard back from them. They've applied for a job through LinkedIn, haven't heard back from the company. Is there any way that people can use, some of the networking tips that you all talked about and LinkedIn to try and enhance response?
Yeah. So let me first contextualize that a little bit. And I'd like to make a distinction between whether if you have applied for a job on LinkedIn's job board versus whether you have tried to reach out to somebody through a connection or a message in LinkedIn as the database. Two different things. Today, we did not talk about how to work with the job board. So I just want to remind everyone. So when somebody posts a job on LinkedIn, whether it's on LinkedIn's job board, Indeed, CareerBuilder, it's all the job boards are all the same. Again, they are being typically flooded with candidates, particularly if it is a remote job. So pack your patience. It is very likely they're not going to see it. I mean, this is just the way that it is. I wish I had better news for you. This is just kind of the reality. It is the reason why once you apply to a job on LinkedIn, and by the way, when you apply to a job on LinkedIn, please do not do so too expeditiously. You gotta work with at a pace because, as I mentioned, people do get inundated with resumes in the first 24 to 48 hours. However, please be thoughtful. Read that posting extremely well. Look at the qualification section, particularly the first 3 to 4 bullets. Please only apply if you're qualified. Now, I know people have different feelings about this. Well, it shouldn't have to be 100%. Should I be 80%? Don't be 50%. You've got to be at least 80. In this market, for you to be noticed, you can't just be interested. You really need to be qualified in the way that they need you to be qualified. So that's the first thing. But even if you are qualified, they may not see it. They're busy. They're all kinds of the way that your resume shows up on LinkedIn. I mean, it's complicated. So the bottom line is to improve your chances, you really, really should. If you feel you're qualified and you're very interested, then I would pop the name of the organization into the search bar, hit enter, hit the people button. That's the second thing. Look for whoever you believe is going to be the hiring manager. If you can figure it out, start with that person. Go to the HR recruiter. Remember that laundry list, C-suite, or somebody else who works in the company. Try to get that internal connection. Try to get that internal champion. Please know, you can send that message to as many people as you want. Doesn't just have to be one person. Years ago, I was on a panel with some other, actually it happened to be some recruiters. And if you can imagine, we were giving a presentation about job search to HR people. That's funny, right? HR people were in the room. They were job seekers. We were helping them. And I remember this recruiter was sitting next to me and she was giving her own little testimonial. And she said that she herself got her resume championed by 5 different people to the employer. They're like, okay, we'll meet her. And she got the job because so many people were referring her in. Okay. So you can do this to multiple people, but especially if you are applying to the job on LinkedIn's job board or any job board, please, please, please make sure to take that extra step. If you've got a 2nd level connection or a 1st level connection to somebody in the company, take advantage of that.
Okay, and I have 3 more questions here for you. First one is from Kate. Sorry about that. I really enjoyed both presentations. Questions: if I'm skilled at networking due to my extrovert nature, but know that some people I'm reaching out to are very introverted, how to put them at ease with the idea of a quick call Zoom meeting?
Vern, you want to take that one?
Make sure I understand the question. You're reaching out to someone who you know is introverted, and is that the question?
Yes, that she's reaching out to someone who is introverted. How do you put them at ease with the idea of a quick call or / Zoom meeting?
Mhm. I don't know that I have. I mean, how well do you know the person? If you know the person pretty well, then even though they're an introvert, which is just again introverted, it depends on where you get your energy from. If it's someone you know really well, I wouldn't see any reason why they wouldn't take your call. If it's someone you don't know well, then craft Cher's giving you some examples of some great, just simple messages, and you hope that they're going to reply to you and have a conversation with you. Sure. Anything else you would say there?
Yeah, I think that the warmer, more relational you are will help to set that person's mind at ease. Because sometimes some people who are not just introverted, but maybe they're just shy. That's different than being introverted. Maybe they're a little bit, maybe they have a little social anxiety. You never know. I mean, we can't diagnose people, right? But maybe something like that. The softer you can be, the better, right? So that you're not trying to again, impose or try to put them on the spot or anything like that, but you're just trying to be warm and relational, friendly, that could be helpful.
Yeah,
The
I
next-
mean, you could say something along the lines that, you know, really welcome the opportunity to speak with you and
See how you're
you
doing?
see how you're doing. Welcome the opportunity to hear about you.
Yeah.
You know, even though they're introverted, that doesn't mean if there's enough of a relationship that they wouldn't want to tell you what's going on in their lives and that type of thing. So,
Just be relational.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question is for Shara. Are abbreviation symbols and the & sign grammar exceptions okay use in LinkedIn email?
Say that one more time. Not sure if I understand the question.
Sure. Can people use abbreviations, symbols, grammar, okay, in LinkedIn emails?
Oh, I see. Yes, and so I would, you know, be clear. There's a lot of things that packed up in that statement. So, if it makes sense, like instead of saying organization, could you say org? Sure. Instead of and, could you say ampersand? Maybe, depends on how grammatically correct you want to be. But I wouldn't, and you know, you could say PMP instead of the you know, spelling out the certification. You know, the name of the acronym of an association instead of the full name, things like that. Sure. But also, it also depends on who you're talking to. There are some people who are, if you know that person and you know that they're very much into abbreviations, that's fine. Be relational, be as grammatically correct as possible, but also try to keep it tight. I mean, that's kind of the best way that I can answer it. Don't automatically just you know, truncate everything. But you know, but you got to keep it a little bit tight.
That's great. And then this is, I think, what's your view about writing content such as articles, etc., and posting them to LinkedIn? Is this a good way to get noticed?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Vern, did you want to talk first on that?
No, I mean, the fact that it's on LinkedIn and people will comment to it and people, you know, and even people commenting to that, you know, you can thank them, you know, thanks for your comment and you make another, you know, and sometimes you can even start a relationship with that.
For
I mean,
sure.
just with that comment.
This
That
is
was that was so insightful. I'd like to, you know, would you be open to, you know, having an online meeting
Right.
to go in more detail? I mean, those are all the different types of possibilities that exist anytime that you're connecting with someone.
For sure. It's
Yeah.
great. That's great, Vern. Yes. So that's one of the great outcomes that can happen once you do that posting. The content of the posting needs to be connected to your brand. Okay. And when I say that, I mean professionally. Now, I know that a lot of people use LinkedIn these days as a little bit more of a social media, like a Facebook kind of thing, and they'll put personal things. Be very careful about that, particularly in our world that gets to be a little controversial. I'm not saying you can't, you know, you can do whatever you like, but please know that people are watching that. I personally would recommend to keep things a little more sanitized, keep your content very professional, focus on your profession, focus on your industry, try to do some thought leadership. You know, any way you can advance the content, advance the knowledge of that industry or that profession, I think is a great thing to do. You don't have to post all the time. Maybe you want to post once a week, once every couple of weeks, a blog. So in LinkedIn, they have this, they call it an article. We call it a blog. On your homepage of your LinkedIn, at the top of the second column, there'll be a little button that says something to post something. There'll be a little button that says article. Again, that's the blog. And then you just open it up. You could pop in a picture, a title, 300 to 500 words would be appropriate for something like that.
That's great. And then for somebody's asked for networking meetings, 3 dates with times, right? Not just 3 dates.
3 dates with times, yes. So
Okay.
yeah, so Tuesday, May 2nd at 10 and Wednesday, May 3rd at 12. Yeah. Date and time.
Before I forget, you had talked about the fact that you two are getting together and you have these morning meetings.
Yes. Thank you.
If you could
I'm going to put in the chat. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
was asked about.
Yep.
Then when you see a job posting on LinkedIn that's recently been reposted and it's a month old, 100 applicants, etc., is that job being reposted as an automated LinkedIn feature or is
No.
an employer actively reposting?
Not only do they have to actively repost, I will let you guys know something. So both LinkedIn and Indeed have very interesting fee-based model these days. It used to be, not to get you too in the weeds here, but it used to be that you could post a job on LinkedIn for 99 bucks. That's not the case anymore. They're following Indeed's method, which none of you would know about. It has to do with the number of, there's a daily rate. So the employer can post like whatever amount they want. Basically the algorithm is supposedly the more dollars they're willing to spend, the more exposure they're going to get. They could spend $6 a day, $10 a day, $25 a day, whatever they want. It can get very expensive. So they'll post it for as long as they need to. If they're reposting it, that means they're asking for a unicorn candidate and they're not finding the right person. It is not automatic. They are being very intentional to make this posting because they're paying a lot of money for it.
Okay. And we are coming up on 11:45 right now. What I did want to say to everyone is at 12 o'clock, we're going to start with FAA, Tamara Smith, and we're going to start our employment section of the expo. If Shira and Vern, if I could ask you one more question, and then do you have like 5 minutes where you could just jump into chat and I could tell you what time I left at the last question? And could you respond directly to those people just to give people a chance to get up, take a break, run to the ladies' room, men's room, whatever, and then come on back? But this has been phenomenal this morning, and the kudos in the chat are just wonderful to see. So thank you both for being here.
You're welcome. Oh, before you ask your last question, Anne,
Mhm.
just to remind everyone, the Higher Moment Mastermind, we now meet every other Friday. And if you go, it's a meetup link that I just shared with you. It's free. It's an hour from 9:15 to 10:15 Eastern. It's myself and Vern and usually one or two other colleagues, other recruiter, coaches, HR kinds of people. It's just an open Q&A. At the end of that meeting, for anybody who wants to stay on the call, I offer a short prayer call for encouragement.
That's great. And I'm going to put both your contact information again in chat, and the email that I send out tomorrow night is going to include everything as well, so that everybody will have access to how to reach you too. Okay. The question is, are cover letters essay and make you seem old and out of touch?
Shira and I are laughing.
We go through this a lot. You want me to give my speech, Vern, or do you want to give?
Go ahead, give your speech.
I have a speech. The speech is as follows. I'm going to say the same sentence twice. All right, here we go. So on the one hand, cover letters are only read 2% of the time. Now I'm going to say it differently. Because cover letters are read 2% of the time, if you're going to write one, write a good one. So for the 2%, and Vern, whenever we have this little speech, Vern always says, as an HR leader, he used to be part of the 2%, which means he really, really read it. So if you're really going to write one, you really got to write it thoughtfully. So you would address, for example, your alignment with the mission, your interest in the role, your qualifications, highlight, pull keywords from the job description. And you can have a little section either with just bolded keywords or a table where it says your requirements, my qualifications, and then you can just kind of list it all out. If you're going to do one, do it right. But 98% of the time, it's not going to be read. One other quick thing on LinkedIn, I don't know why this is the case, but if you're doing that easy apply button on LinkedIn, I don't know why they do not have a button for cover letters. So if you want to write one, you'd actually have to do a PDF and have the document, the cover letter followed by the resume in one document. Otherwise, they will not see it.
And my 2 cents was, as you know, I spent a good part of my career in HR, and I always required a cover letter. It was another way for me to see how well the person communicates in writing, how well they crafted the cover letter in relation to the job. That was just another piece of information to help me narrow down. As Shira said, if you're looking at 200, resumes, you got to narrow it down, right? And so the cover letter was a way to help. So I was one of the 2% that read it. And as a job seeker, and if they required a cover letter, you'd better send it. And you don't know as a job seeker whether I'm one of, it's going to be one of the 2% or it's going to be the other 98% who will never read it. So.
And one other quick thing, if anybody here is thinking about using ChatGPT to write their cover letter, not only that, but certainly their resume, think a couple times. I'm not saying you can't use it. Please, you have to be the human in the mix here. It hallucinates. It'll say things that are not true because the ChatGPT is designed to fill in the blank. All right. So there are all kinds of things that could get wrong. If you're going to use it, be very, very careful. Read it thoroughly, edit it extensively, particularly if you're going to do it for your resume, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that because it's not going to be able to share your accomplishment stories. It might say, oh, these are the kind of skills in this job, but it's never going to know who you are and the accomplishments that you bring to the table. And resumes absolutely need to have accomplishment stories, not just job duties. So I just a word to the wise.
That's
And
great.
Shira, in the Career Gateway, we actually have a new class called Becoming a Cyber Savvy 50+ Job Seeker, where
Yeah.
we talk about using ChatGPT and AI effectively in your job search, not writing your resume, not writing your cover letter,
Right.
and ways that it could help enhance, but certainly not write. And so that is something that we are addressing. And in the Career Gateway, we would say cover letters, you know, if certainly if they ask, you know, write one and write a damn good one. But because if it is read, and just as Vern said, you know, he often would use it as a writing sample. You know, is this person, can they write coherently? Can they present themselves? And so, you know, we have heard from employers that a good cover letter has been a game changer in having that person interviewed and getting the job. So.
Absolutely. One quick last thing. I'm not sure if everybody saw this, but there was just a question in the chat about where to find the first level contacts on email. So on this particular slide, which you will get, just to remind you all, you go ahead and find your first. You pull up your first level contact, open up their profile, and you'll see right down here, there's the contact info button. And then on the next page, you're going to see the email address. Okay, just wanted to remind folks of that.
That's great. That's great. There are a couple of questions starting at 11. Hold on a second. Let me go back up. 11:41 with the initials MR. If you wouldn't mind, if you could just answer those questions and just respond directly to them, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do is just give everybody a break because we're going to have a long afternoon. And the folks who've been with us all morning, thank you so much. Shira and Vern, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for putting this beautiful presentations together today. We really appreciate it. And everyone, if you have a specific question for Shira or Vern, they'll be in chat for just about 5 minutes. And then you'll have their contact information as well. Please don't forget to save chat because it has all that other good information. Anything that Shira or Vern put in chat this morning, I'll make sure it goes in the Word file that I send you tomorrow night. Shira and Vern, thank you.
Can you also mention about BoomerWorks? I don't know.
Super fast. Yep. So for anybody on this call that is seeking would like to transition into self-employment, I have another community service project called BoomerWorks. So it's just, I'm going to put it in the chat right here, boomerworks.org. It is a program where we help 50+ professionals re-career into self-employment. We have monthly free educational calls, presentations on every aspect of self-employment. We've been doing this regularly since the beginning of the pandemic, actually. And most everything's recorded on our website. I will share with you, newsflash, for the first time, we're actually going to offer a specialized fee-based social media bootcamp. It's a one-off. We have 2 social media experts who have been presenting for us regularly for free, as we always do. But because we've had such an interest in social media, I said, you know what, let's do a deeper dive. And so they're going to offer probably in the month of August, weekly. I think we're going to charge $250 for the whole month. And so you can come on the different calls and go deeper into social media. But that'll be a one-off. Everything else though that we do is free. So
Great.
you're welcome to join us.
That's excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Vern.